We are in a new month. You noticed, right? New month, new songs, new everything. Well, we are in a new month. We've moved from co-creating a joyful life, which was September's. Oh, you okay? Thank you. Okay. Whew. We moved from September and co-creating a joyful life with Spirit to the month of October, which is the power of forgiveness. Oh, I know, I used that F word. The one nobody wants to deal with. You know, this is the month usually you get a lot of coughing, a lot of people having to excuse themselves and go to the restroom. It's like, this is a difficult subject to talk about. So we're going to just jump right in and we're going to talk about it anyway. With this month, forgive us our trespasses. So we're going to talk about the nature of forgiveness. And it's not, I'm sorry, I'm sorry I broke the lamp. It's more than, fine, I forgive you. With the face, the face, right? The mom face, Forgiveness is a practice. It is a practice, it's a process, it's a way of life. Forgiveness for us is a way of life. So here we are in the first talk of forgiveness, called Forgive Us Our Trespasses. So let's talk about what our faith tradition, what religious science says about forgiveness and the power of forgiveness. Ernest Holmes says this. He said, forgiveness means reconciliation in spite of estrangement. It means reunion despite hostility. It means acceptance of those who are unacceptable. He had a way with words. It means reception of those who are rejected. He goes on to say this, forgiveness is unconditional or it is not forgiveness at all. That's a huge chunk. Forgiveness is unconditional or it is not forgiveness at all. When our patience has seemingly run its course, when it appears to be the only common sense that we stand up and accuse our brother, let us remember we must still forgive again and again and again. Ernest Holmes says this. He ends up saying, the principle of love, forgiveness, blessing, and understanding must win in the end. That's what we're talking about. That is the power of forgiveness. It is unconditional or it is not at all. Because then what you're saying is, I will love you as long as you do things my way. That is not forgiveness. So let's move to the next question then. Who exactly is it we're asking forgiveness from? God does not forgive because God has never condemned. So I want to be very clear about this. All forgiveness is self-forgiveness. All forgiveness is self-forgiveness. Whether we are forgiving ourselves for our own unskilled behavior, or we're forgiving someone else who trespassed against us. That's next week's talk. I'm not going to get ahead of myself. All forgiveness is self-forgiveness, and this is true on many levels. All right? We cannot forgive others if we don't forgive ourselves, first and foremost, because we cannot give what we don't have. We can't pour from an empty cup. We cannot give to others what we don't have for ourselves. So self-forgiveness comes first and foremost. 2, we cannot expect forgiveness from others when we hold stuff against other people. We cannot expect forgiveness from others if we do not practice it ourselves. And thirdly, ultimately, all forgiveness is self-forgiveness because it's a process that goes on within us. It doesn't go on in anybody else. It's not in anybody else's mind or heart. It's in ours. So ultimately, all forgiveness, regardless of who and what or where and the circumstances, all of it is within us. So it is always self-forgiveness. It is an energetic that we set up inside our bodies so that when we pray, when we practice forgiveness, when we get clear with ourselves who and what exactly we are, it is the gift that we give ourselves. When we release someone else from the burden of condemnation, we find out we're the ones who are free. We're free. We are the outpicturing of the Creator, right? We always say that in Core Concept 1, God is all there is. We are a creation of that. We are a creation of the Creator, so that we are endowed with all of those qualities. We are that. We are the outpicturing of the Creator. So ultimately, we must come to the place where there is no forgiveness necessary because we do not condemn. If we believe Core Concept 1, God is all there is. Well, if God is all there is, God cannot condemn God. God cannot forgive God. God can't offend God. And that's really what we're talking about. That is unconditional forgiveness. You know, there is that story in Matthew 18 in the Bible. Jesus tells this story about a man who goes to his employer, I think, and he's indebted to him. And he can't pay it back, and he's sorrowful. And his employer, I can't remember who it was, but his employer forgives the debt, right? He forgives the debt. He lets the guy go. It's like, don't worry about it. You know, it's cool. Go. Be happy. And this man goes from his place of work to the town where other people owe him money. And so he's like, oh, pay up, fool. You know, give me what you owe me. And when his employer hears that, he's like freaked out. And he drags the guy back and he's like, what are you doing? I forgave you. Why are you holding these other people to it? He's like, well, it's my money and they owe it to me, blah, blah, blah. So the employer ultimately throws him in jail. Okay, so this is, and why? And why? Because we can only get back what we send out. Because the universe is reflecting back to us. So when he was holding the people that were indebted to him, when he was holding them, then ultimately the universe has to hold him. And that's just the way it is. So he was taught the hard fact that the law of life responds to us exactly as we use it. Exactly as we use it. This process is an inside job. Everything that happens to us in the outside world is a reflection back to us, showing us something, giving us something, teaching us something. Everything is an inside job. It can only reflect back to us either what we love, what we hate, or what we are. You know, think about that for a while. The universe reflects back to us our predominant thoughts. And as we practice forgiveness, it gets easier and easier to forgive. As we practice forgiveness, because it gets us in touch with our Christ consciousness, with our divine mind. We are one with that. It's in there. It can't go anywhere. It is us. You know, we talk about being body and soul, or we talk about being God and human. No, we are God having an experience as being a human. We're God showing up in a body that we chose in this limited time period for this particular point in time on this earth at this place. We're God having an experience. We're not human and divine. We are the divinity itself, creating a manifestation of a body and having an experience. And Ernest Holmes says this. He says, it is only when we have completely forgiven others that we can get clearance in our own minds, for we are judged by the judgment with which we judge. Right? We hear that over and over. He goes on to say this: if we criticize, condemn, censure, these are the attitudes that occupy our thinking. They will not only reflect themselves outwardly, they will also reflect themselves inwardly. We must, he goes on to say, for the without is but an extension of the within, and the within is the determiner of the extension. And I know that's like a whole lot of words. What he means to say is everything begins inside, and it goes out and it reflects back to us. He goes on to say this: if we want complete clearance of our attitudes, we must forgive everything and everyone, whether we like it or not. This is one of the great truths of life. Ernest Holmes. Now, breathe. Breathe. That's tough love, you know? That is tough love religious science version. We will not be free unless we free everybody else. We must hold harmless those people. We got to step up and do the big work. Aren't you tired of being in the process? How long have we been in the process of religious science? Holy crap, sorry. Some of us have been processing for 30, 40 years, right? Stop, you know? At some point, we have to step up and do the big work. The big, outrageous, audacious, work of really putting these principles into action. Don't judge. Don't condemn. Oh, well, that's the goal anyway, isn't it? That's the goal. That's the goal. Why? Because everything we hold in our minds, we will eventually see somewhere in our lives. You hold that thing against your brother or sister. You hold that thing against your boss. Whatever it is, that thing that lives in your head, you hold that. You have just signed on for another experience of that. And how's that working out for you? Oh, I feel like Dr. Phil. And how's that working out for you, right? Because everything in the manifest universe is a reflection. It is a reflection. That's all the physical world can be, is a reflection of the spiritual. We withhold forgiveness from someone else. We have just signed on for that experience. We decide we got to get even with somebody. We've just signed on for that experience. There's an old Confucius saying that says, before you embark on a journey of revenge, dig 2 graves. There's a reason for that. You know, there is a reason. Because we can only get back what we send out. What energy are you marinating in? We all have our bubbles, right? You know, you have your bubble, you walk around in your bubble all day long. And what's in your bubble is all of your attitudes and your emotions and your feelings and your resentments and your bliss and your love, and you're just marinating in it, and we're just walking through life and we're bumping up against each other. And we're sharing and we're interacting and we're rubbing up against each other. So what is it you're marinating with? What is it you're marinating in? Is it love? Is it joy? Is it all those qualities of God? Or is it those extreme ends of the qualities of God? You know, we always talk about the qualities of God as having no opposite. The qualities of God have no opposite. Love, beauty, balance, joy, order, peace, power, all of those qualities, they have no opposite. They are on a sliding scale to the infinite on either sides. And we call the least amount of something something else because we think we live in a dualistic world. So we say love and hate. There's no such thing as hate. What that is someone demonstrating the least amount of love that's capable. You know? They're just being miserly with God's love. So we call it hate. It's not hate. There is only love. There is that place where there is no opposites. There is only the qualities of God. So we can only get back what we send out. And you know, and forgiveness not only gives us freedom, right? When you forgive unconditionally, we're free. We are free. That means that nobody else's stuff can interfere with our freedom. No one else's stuff can interfere with our bliss. When we unconditionally forgive, that means that we have released feeling bad about someone else's behavior of the past. So then we are free to live in the present. And you know, freedom of forgiveness is good for our bodies too. I just want you to know that. There is a physiological payoff for forgiving. The fear of holding someone wrong creates that fight or flight thing, you know, that readiness within us. When we begin the practice, I'm going to just like whip a little biophysical stuff on you. When we go into that practice of forgiveness, the frontal cortex interrupts the pattern and quells the fear response in the amygdala. The result is relaxation of the muscular tension that signals the cortex that forgiveness has occurred. Forgiveness has occurred. So then it quells the fight or flight symptom. It lowers the cortisol in your bloodstream. You become more peaceful. Another study had a similar result. Subjects who scored higher in self-reported levels of forgiveness had lower diastolic blood pressure than their counterparts who were not forgiving. So it's good for your heart. It's good for your blood pressure to forgive. Those just some 2 little physical side effects, you know? That's the good news. The active practice of forgiveness makes us healthier. I love it. So if for no other good reason, forgive because it's good for your body. Ernest Holmes said this in the Science of Mind. He said, how soon, I love this, how soon should we forgive the one who has done us wrong? Forgiveness should follow immediately on the recognition of a wrong done by one another. We cultivate the spirit of forgiveness in which there is no room for hate. What would our lives be like if we had no room for hate? Could you imagine? All that energy that would be freed up when we're not being hostile and angry and upset and offended, you know? Just because you're offended doesn't mean it's offensive. Babies. Core concept 1, God is all there is. Right? And so when we look out in this room like here, right, we're all in celebration together. We love each other. We love each other unconditionally. We've committed to do that. We signed on to that membership form, and we said, yeah, I'm gonna do my best to see everybody in this room as God sees us. I'm gonna look out on a whole bunch of incarnations of spirit. And that's one of the commitments we made when we came together in spiritual community. And we invite everybody in all of San Diego in on this. We say, come on in and have fun, and I'll see you as God sees you too, and we'll see each other as God sees you. And yeah, we rub up against each other, and we piss each other off oh, I'm sorry, am I allowed to say that? We get angry with each other every once in a while, and it's still God bumping up against God, and we're here for gifts. We are here for the enjoyment. We are here for the blessing. We're here to expand in our awareness of the consciousness of God, which is who we are, who and what we are. Because this is the road we're traveling. We're in process, right? We're in process. We haven't grabbed the whole chunk yet and said, that's it, I'm just forgiving unconditionally forever and always. We haven't done that, because sometimes I can't even get out of my driveway before I'm angry with somebody. I get on the freeway and someone's already, oh, jeez, what the hell's wrong with him? Whatever. So we have to go back to this. So we forget, and we go back to it. But we've got it within us to do. We can drop the whole process, and we can be that in the world. We can consciously choose to be that. In 2006, 32-year-old Charles Roberts entered the one-room schoolhouse, West Nickel Mines, in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, with a variety of weapons he probably bought legally. Not going there. He allowed the male students to leave. He allowed 3 parents with infants to leave and a pregnant woman to leave the schoolhouse. And then he lined up the remaining students, all of them girls, ages 7 to 13, and he shot them all execution style. Can't even think of that. 5 of them died. And then Roberts committed suicide. And amazingly, just hours after the incident, the families of that Amish community that was so devastated extended their thoughts and their prayers and their forgiveness to this man. They went over to his house. They cooked his widow food. They took care of his family. They attended his funeral. Many of them visited the man's parents and extended family to offer their sympathies about what had happened. And dozens of them, attended his funeral. The grandfather of one of the murdered girls said, "We must not think evil of this man." That's unconditional love. That is unconditional love that a spirit has for itself. That's the kind of forgiveness we're talking about. That is the active practice of forgiveness. That is divine and unconditional love. So how do we get there from here? How do we get there from here? How many people are you holding hostage in your mind? How many people are living rent-free in your head? And you are holding them hostage because of a behavior that they exhibited? How many people are in there that you have something against? Some petty, trivial BS. Who's living rent-free in your head right now that you're making wrong for something, some petty little discrepancy that you've had with them? Who's not God in hiding in your head, but is a wrong human? In The Hidden Power of the Bible, Ernest Holmes said this. He said, Jesus explains clearly the meaning of divine forgiveness. He says we should forgive 70 times 7, which is just another way of meaning that forgiveness is eternal. It is eternal and ever available. What a load is dropped from the shoulders of personal responsibility when we realize the eternal mind holds nothing against anyone. It's not our job. It's not our job. We don't have to be judge, jury, and executioner in our heads. Divine mind holds nothing against anyone. And then Ernest Holmes goes on to say this, but to those who feel it is unfair, it will be a tough saying. And how many of us have been there? What? What do you mean? I'm better than he is. He's the one who did wrong. I didn't do wrong. I'm the innocent bystander here. Ernest Holmes goes on to say, are not my virtues to be rewarded above those who have none? That's our judgment, right? That is our judgment. As soon as we find somebody wrong, what we're saying is, I'm better than they are. Ernest Holmes says, oh, foolish one, what do you know about virtue? Has your life always been above reproach? Have you never fallen short of your divine calling? Who are you to point the finger at your brother? The man who feels self-righteous, rise from his petty virtues, lives a life of self-delusion. Think about that next time you get offended by somebody else's opinion. Because that's really all it is. It's an opinion on how to do life. And you don't happen to agree with somebody else's opinion on how to do life. So you make them wrong. Okay. So are we done as a collective, as a religious science community, as the holders of the truth and the light, are we done with the petty and the small and the self-righteous? Oh, come on. I am. I know that I am. This is my active practice. I know that I am. I know I made a commitment to see people as God in hiding, to see those divine and lovely and wonderful incarnations of spirit, to see everyone doing their divine and right thing their own particular and peculiar way sometimes, but nonetheless to see all beings as God beings. Are we ready to stop being petty and to break out into our fullness, break out into this acknowledgement of the strength and the power and the co-creation of spirit that we are? Because we can practice this. You know, we can practice this on a daily basis, minute to minute. I got some really, really good advice from a book I read from Wayne Dyer. And he talks about forgiveness, and he says these things. He said, step one, move on to the next act. He said, your life is a play in so many acts. And if this act was a tragedy, move the hell on to the next act, you know? At some point, you have to put it behind you. Hurt is no longer hurt. It's a thought you're having. Betrayal is no longer betrayal in the present moment. It is a thought you are holding in your mind. It doesn't exist anywhere except in the past, which doesn't exist anywhere. Anger is no longer anger. It is a thought that you are having. Move on. Write the next chapter. Write the next act. Move forward. Number 2, he said, reconnect consciously with spirit. When we're all about the slight and the hurt, we're holding out on the power of forgiveness. Go to prayer. Just go to prayer. Go to meditate. Go to God. Let it go. Go to the truth of your immortal soul and let the physical nonsense float away. Number 3, don't go to bed angry. Now, married couples, have you ever heard that rule, right? Don't go to bed angry. I've stayed up for days. Sometimes, oh, I love you. But it's true, it has a lot of truth in it. We don't want to go to bed with all the stuff in our heads. We don't want to go to bed with the conversation we're having, and I said it, he said it, he should, and I should have said when he said, all that stuff. It's like, no. Don't go to bed angry. Don't even go to bed angry with yourself. Go to bed with all the good stuff in your head. Go to bed with what went right. Go to bed with blessing the day, blessing what happened. And then he goes on to say, shift your focus from blaming others to understanding yourself. It's not about assigning blame. It's about what in me got lit up. Why did I respond to that? Why did I react to that? What was it? What button was pushed in me that I lit up like a Christmas tree when this thing happened? You find out what that is. So you stop blaming outside and you start going, interesting. Let me discover something about myself. Maybe I don't know. Maybe it's hidden from me. Maybe it's in my shadow side. Maybe I can learn something. He goes on to say, avoid telling people what to do. Oh my God, I got to quit my job. Avoid telling people what to do. And I love this because we so want to tell people what to do, don't we? Somebody tells us their story of like, oh my God, you don't know what happened to me today, blah, blah, blah. And we go, here's what you should do. It's like, that's the first thing we want to do. Avoid telling people what to do. To be happier, to be better, to be more wealthy, to make us happy. You need to do this so that I can be happier. Stop telling people what to do. Practice listening more than speaking. Wayne Dyer goes on to say, learn to let go and be as water. Be as water. Flow through a situation. Be open and receptive to other people's opinions. Just be open and receptive to it. Oh, I hear what you're saying. That's an interesting thought. You know what? You could be right. Oh, that shuts down everything. Oh, you know what? You could be right. Just be as water. Take responsibility for your part. That's interesting, right? When someone has hurt us or there's been a betrayal. What was my role in it? Who did I show up being in this particular story that was written, that I wrote? Be responsible for your own part. Exist in your life as if you ordered everything that showed up. Life is like one big parcel from Amazon, and stuff shows up at the door and you go, what the? Operate as if everything that shows up in your life you ordered, because on some level you did, right? And then what are you going to do with it? Well, there's a big old return sticker you can slap on it too. You're not stuck with what you got. There is always go back to prayer, go back to thought, return to sender. You're not stuck with what you have. That's what new thought is all about. Having a new thought about your life. And then new things will begin to outpicture. What am I up to? Let go of resentments. Wow, there's a biggie. Resentments don't come from the conduct of the other party in the altercation. Okay? They survive and thrive because we are unwilling to end the altercation with unconditional offerings of love, kindness, and authentic forgiveness. They only exist because we keep escalating. Us, them, us, them, us, them. This whole defended love thing. If we just went, you could be right. And really, really let it go, we could let it go. It takes more energy to hang on to stuff and to cling to stuff than it does to just let it go. And step 9, be kind instead of right. Boy, that's right out of the Course in Miracles, isn't it? Go to the love instead of going to the offense. Go to the love. There's love there. Oh, underneath all the messy stuff and underneath all the details and underneath the lack of forgiveness or the offendedness of any situation, there's love underneath. Go to the love. And then practice giving. That's another one. Practice giving. And what that means is love for hate, light to darkness, pardon for injury. Oh, St. Francis' prayer. Let me sow love. Let me sow love wherever I go. Read those words daily. Overcome your ego's demands to be right. And then step 11, stop looking for occasions to be offended. Don't you love that? There are people, I bet you, that you work with. That's all they do, is they walk around looking for shit to be offended about. I'm sorry, that's one of them. And I'll hear about that, They will look for things to be upset by. And you have these people in your life, don't give them your power. Love them, just love them. That's all you need to do. Not being offended is a way of saying, I have control over how I feel. I have control over how I feel. So whatever you do out there, it has no power over me. I get to choose how I'm going to feel about any situation I'm in, regardless of what's going on. When you feel offended, you are practicing judgment. They did something, I'm mad about it because they didn't do it the way I wanted them to do it. Or they're showing up in all their unskilled behavior or whatever. You're upset. You're offended by their conduct. What you don't realize sometimes, and these are Wayne Dyer's words, what you may not realize is that when you judge another person, you're not defining them, you're defining yourself. You define yourself as someone who judges others. Make sense? So let's pull that back. Don't live in the past. Be present. There's nothing in the past for you. All those resentments, all those stuff you're harboring, all those people in your head, they're just thoughts. It's just energy. Process it and let it go. We make the past responsible for why we can't be happy in the present. We don't need to do that anymore. We can just release it and let it go. Our power is in the present. And then number 13, embrace your dark times. Embrace your dark times. Embrace your shadow nature. It's there to teach you something. It's there to show up and to give you a gift. And it's up to us to accept it and let it transform our life. Let it transform our life. So when you do get lit up, what is the gift in that? You do react negatively to something. What is the gift in that? What is it here to teach me? And then really, really lastly, send love. We are the Christ consciousness. We are the Christ consciousness in form. That is the truth of us. There is nothing else true about you or your mind or your body or your thoughts or your emotions or your feelings. There is nothing else of you except spirit. Spirit has made itself visible in form, in the form of a body. And with it comes a whole bunch of stuff, cells and organs and subatomic particles and all of those physical things that spirit has created to create a human body. But it's all spiritual material. Spirit made everything out of itself. So everything that you are is spirit. You are nothing else but spirit. There's no spirit end. There's just spirit showing up in physical form. That energy is in the energy of matter. And so when the matter no longer exists, we go back to being pure energy. But that's all that there is of us, is just energy of spirit. So Ernest Holmes said this, "Today I affirm that I forgive everyone, and I am forgiven by everyone. I affirm the eternal spirit harbors no malice toward me or anyone else. Forgiving and being forgiven, I have an inward sense of peace and tranquility. There is no anxiety, there is no feeling of guilt, there is no fear of judgment. All mistakes of the past are wiped out in my consciousness, and I no longer carry the burden from them. I look forward to the future with joy, in peace, in gladness, and live this present moment with an inner assurance that I am one with all life." I'm so glad you all stayed. Thank you so much.